Great. So welcome everyone to today's event. My name is Sarah. I am a program coordinator with Virginia Clean Cities, and I will be your host today. I just wanted to let everyone know a couple of things at the beginning. Number one is that we are recording this webinar to be shared later on. So if you're not comfortable with that, you can go ahead and exit out and watch it later. But the other thing is that we will be holding a Q&A session at the end of today's event. So if you have any questions, please submit them using the Q&A box. That will make it easiest for us to sort and then go through the questions at the end. And please feel free to enter questions at any point that you have them. I would like to start off today by thanking all of you for attending and by giving a special thanks to our speakers this afternoon. To give everyone a little bit of background on Virginia Clean Cities, we are supported by federal and state government in partnership with private sector stakeholders, and we're housed at James Madison University, located in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Now, to give everyone a little bit of background on transportation and EVs, in the United States, transportation is the largest sector source of greenhouse gas emissions. It equates to approximately 28% of those emissions. EVs give a lot of great benefits. One of the first benefits is cost. Consumer EVs can typically get over 100 mile per gallon gas equivalent, which is a great deal more than gallons of gas that we normally get, and it's often a lot less expensive. Environmentally, EVs typically have lower life cycle emissions than their internal combustion engine counterparts, and that's especially true in states like Virginia. Here in Virginia, we do a great job at incorporating higher levels of cleaner electricity into our mix, which keeps those emissions even lower. And then nationally, almost all of our electricity is produced domestically, which is great for U.S. energy security, and it also helps us reduce pollution. On the agenda this afternoon, we will learn about the importance of EV data, how to understand that data, and then we will hear a little bit about EVWATTS program, which is a program that supports EV infrastructure across the country through the use of data. As I mentioned before, there will be a Q&A session at the end. Please submit any of your questions using the Q&A box function. So up first, we will hear about the importance of EV data. Here to tell us about that today is Michael Laughlin from the U.S. Department of Energy. Michael, I will go ahead and bring up your slides, and you can take it away.
Thanks very much. So as she said, I'm Mike Laughlin, and I'm part of the U.S. Department of Energy's Vehicle Technologies Office, or VTO. For a quick background explanation for those who might not be familiar, VTO conducts research across the entire spectrum of vehicles, from the smallest cars to the largest over-the-road trucks. We've been involved in electric vehicle research, development, demonstration, and early deployment for more than 20 years. In fact, it might even be more than that. We fund a number of projects each year to expand our knowledge about advanced vehicle technologies and seek the next breakthroughs in transportation efficiency. Today, I'll talk a bit about electric vehicles and data and explore why we at DOE care about electric vehicles and data and why consumers may also care about this. Next, please. So first, let's explore some of the reasons that electric vehicles are an important part of transportation now and in the future. And Sarah's already touched on some of these, but I'll go over them as well. A number of national level benefits, including energy efficiency. EVs convert almost 80% of the electrical energy from the grid into power at the wheels to move the vehicle. In comparison, a gasoline vehicle converts about somewhere around 30% of the energy in gasoline to power at the wheels. They improve transportation energy security and diversity, enabling us to switch from petroleum fuels that power essentially all transportation now to the more diverse and often domestic fuel sources that generate electricity in this country. They can reduce criteria emissions like NOx and PM that cause local air quality problems, as well as greenhouse gas emissions. Electric vehicles offer the particular benefit of zero emissions in local communities. Emissions, of course, will depend on the fuel source generating the electricity. But electric vehicles can also be good for consumers, as has already been noted today. They can potentially reduce operating costs, as electricity is usually cheaper than gasoline on a per mile basis, and electric vehicles often have fewer maintenance requirements than conventional vehicles as well. They can be very convenient for consumers who can charge them at home or at work, eliminating the need to stop at a gas station, which many EV drivers seem to appreciate. And then, of course, the performance benefits, quiet, smooth operation, and quick acceleration. I think all of us can mentally come up with a vehicle or two, that electric vehicle or two, that are capable of acceleration times that are almost unthinkable for conventional vehicles to achieve. Next, please. So how does the Department of Energy and VTO in particular help with making electric vehicles a reality? We have wide-ranging technology research with industry, academia, and our national laboratories to make electric vehicles more efficient, lower in cost, and more reliable. The work we do covers batteries, electric motors and inverters, and more. Through resources like our Alternative Fuels Data Center, which I'll talk about in a minute, we offer unbiased information about the benefits and challenges of electric vehicles tailored to the needs of a variety of audiences. DOE works with local clean cities coalitions like Virginia Clean Cities nationwide to help disseminate information tailored to their regions. And I'll talk more about this in an upcoming slide as well. And finally, DOE issues targeted funding opportunities like the one that resulted in the EVWATTS project that will be discussed later to address specific needs for technology, education, information, or really anything else we see as an area important to pursue. Next, please. So as I noted in the previous slide, DOE maintains a number of resources that help provide unbiased information on electric vehicles, and I've shown a few of the resources on this slide. The Alternative Fuels Data Center, or what we call the AFDC, because everything in government needs an acronym, includes fact pages for each major alternative fuel for transportation, including electricity. The AFDC lists the basics for each fuel, their benefits and challenges, and links to available vehicles and can use each fuel, among other information. The AFDC station locator, which is the second picture down on the right, on the left there, offers an up-to-date listing of alternative fuel stations, including EV charging stations across the country, that are accessible with familiar mapping tools for folks who've used Google Maps or other mapping tools like that. Users can identify stations near a particular address or in a city or state, as well as map a driving route and identify stations available along that route. The station locator for electric vehicles includes both level 2 charging and DC fast charging. In addition, the AFDC has a vehicle cost calculator shown at the bottom to compare conventional and alternative fuel total cost of ownership and emissions based on your driving distances and other parameters you can enter. In addition, the AFDC also has reports and other tools available on telematics systems that can enable robust data collection from vehicles for better managing the vehicles and expanding understanding of how they're used. Telematic systems such as the ones from Swatch or Samsara can provide the hardware and software necessary to collect and analyze operational detail and data in great detail. And finally, the fueleconomy.gov website, which is a collaboration between us at DOE and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, has many tools as well for consumers for comparing efficiencies of conventional and electric vehicles, seeing average fuel costs for these vehicles, and getting tips on how to drive more efficiently. Users can access this site in both desktop and mobile formats, which is handy when you are out shopping for a car. And this is good for new or used cars, as the fuel economy information includes vehicles as far back as the mid-1980s. Next, please. So as I noted, there's a network of more than 75 clean cities coalitions that stand ready to help as well. They're local experts in clean, efficient transportation and have the connections to local decision makers that are essential in creating this clean transportation future. Organizations like Virginia Clean Cities stay well informed about new vehicle technologies, the technologies that are working best for their regions, and the available incentives for purchasing of these technologies. Supported by us at the National DOE Technology Integration Program within VTO, through financial assistance and information resources like the AFDC, these coalitions are a great resource for helping make decisions about advanced transportation. Next, please. As I noted before, DOE conducts extensive research to facilitate electric vehicle development and deployment, but we need lots of data to ensure we have a complete understanding of where potential research gaps might be. DOE needs data to understand how people use their vehicles and how they might use electric vehicles differently than their conventional counterparts. How far do people drive? Where do they drive? Oops. Sorry, I was so focused on the presentation, I didn't know that it disappeared there for a second. There we go. Excellent. How far do people drive and where do they drive? Is it mostly city or highway or a mix? How much of the available range for an electric vehicle do drivers typically need to use in a day or trip? We also really need data to understand how people use charging stations for their EVs. When and where do they charge? What station locations are most popular? How depleted is the vehicle battery when charging starts? How long does the vehicle remain at the charging station when the actual charging event is done? And where and when do drivers use DC fast charging? DOE can combine insights like this from EV user data with other information sources, like characteristics of the electricity grid now and in the future, to get a big picture look at the impact of EVs. And we can see where potential future challenges might lie and what technology research might be useful to address them. Something that we did a number of years ago was something called the EV project, which I'd be happy to talk about more. Probably not today, but if somebody wants to email me, they can feel free to do that. Next, please. So not only is data useful to us at DOE, but data about how electric vehicles and charging stations are used can also be useful to the individual consumer. So this slide highlights some of the basic questions where data about EV performance and about your own vehicle usage can help you make the right choice for you regarding electric vehicles. Things like, do you drive long distances every day, or do you do that rarely? Does your typical week of driving stay within a radius that an EV is capable of reaching on a single charge mostly? What EV might match best with your typical driving patterns, and does that vehicle match your budget? Understanding how you use the vehicle can also help you with your charging plans and where you should be looking for charging. As I mentioned before, does your daily driving stay within the available range of the vehicle, so you can simply recharge it at home daily and start with a quote-unquote full tank, or will you need additional charging during the day? And where can you get this additional charging opportunity? Do you actually have access to charging at home, or will you need to use public or multifamily housing charging to meet that need? And how often will you need to do that? And will your vehicle be in one place long enough during the day to fully recharge with level 1 or 2 charging, or do you need DC fast charging to do that? Next, please. As I noted early on in this presentation, DOE does fund a variety of projects with research, education, and deployment partners. Firstly, funded projects like EVWATTS help DOE meet its research, deployment, and education mission. Data collection projects can help us understand how people use electric vehicles and what challenges they face in doing so. We can also see whether these problems are technical that require some new hardware that needs research, or if the issues can be solved more with education and outreach. And data collection projects not only help DOE understand how EVs are used, but also make that understanding more broadly available to researchers and the public. We can explain how EVs are used in terms of their benefits and challenges for consumers to help them see how EVs could work for them. This can really help frame EV use for new EV users and help highlight solutions to many of the challenges that are commonly cited with EV use. This can also define the real-world capabilities of EVs, how they perform in real-world applications, and how that might align with how you might use your vehicle. And for us, more data for more users in more use cases across more locations in this country all really helps us build a more thorough and useful understanding of EV use. Next. And that completes my presentation. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and looking forward to answer some questions later.
Thank you so much, Michael. I am sorry for that little PowerPoint crash.
More stuff.
So thank you. Technological difficulties just seems to be a way of life these days. So up next, we will learn more about understanding your EV data from Don Francis with Clipper Creek. Don, go ahead and take it away. I can't hear you. Your Bluetooth might not be connected.
How now?
Perfect.
Okay, sorry. Technology. Go to the next slide. So one of the things I'm going to talk about is, okay, you got the car, now what? We are a 2 EV household. We've had an EV in our household now for 10 years. And for the last 3 years, we've had 2. One a Tesla and the other a Nissan Leaf, and I've had 3 Leafs. So I have lots of experience with Leafs. And there are not a number of applications out there which let you capture data. And as an engineer, I'm always interested in data to tell you how well you're doing, what kind of energy efficiency are you getting, how much energy are you using, where do you want to charge your vehicle, a number of things like that. One of the apps I like a lot is something called TesLab. It collects data from my Tesla and displays it in a format that I can do something with. This happened to be a trip back from dinner last Saturday night. It was the last time I drove the car, and you can see that I drove 2.1 miles, but I used 2.7 miles of energy, what the temperature was, There's a whole lot of data, and there's multiple screens. And as you can see at the time, I had an 80% state of charge. There's screen after screen of data available. Go to the next slide. Another one that I use on my smartphone. These are all smartphone apps, every one of these apps, and I've got a bunch of them. One is called Stats, and it really gets into the details on charging and battery health and multiple screens. And it's great if you're trying to figure out, how am I doing? How's my performance compared to standards? How much energy will my battery store today now that it's 3 years old compared to when it was new? Lots and lots of data there as well. Go to the next slide. Again, we have Leafs and have had Leafs, and I use what's called Leaf Spy Pro. And this particular application was designed to display on smartphones, and it kind of gives you an all-inclusive one screen that tells you everything you need to know. What's the health of your battery? What's your state of charge? How much energy is left in the battery? How much are you using on your auxiliaries? How much more range do you have based on the way you're driving before you get to either zero or a value that you set up in advance? And this kind of information isn't normally displayed in the vehicle. It's there, but these apps allow you to capture data like this. It also is looking at things like tire pressure. It also is looking at battery health. There are screens that show how your battery is doing. If you're charging at a DC fast charger, it will give you data on how fast you're charging. It's a very good application for the user who wants to know a little bit more about what's going on with his vehicle. Next slide. Okay, so now you've got a car, you know what it's doing. How am I going to get there? Where am I going to go? There are a couple of really good planning tools out there. One that I use a lot is called a Better Route Planner, and it lets me choose what route I'm going to take to drive from wherever I'm going to wherever I'm headed. Here I'm showing a trip from Atlanta to Charlotte, and it's looking at my current state of charge, telling me that I need to stop at the Greenville Supercharger. It tells me how long I need to stop. It also, the other reason I like a better route planner is it gives me options. My son lives in rural Virginia, outside of DC, and there are two ways for me to get there. I can go up 85, 95, or I can go up the Shenandoah Valley and come in the back way. And most of the route planners won't give me that option. This one will, and I could choose which way I wanted to go, and again, gives me ideas on where to stop, how long I'm going to need to stop, and how long it's going to take me to drive the entire trip. So it's a really good planning tool when you're taking long trips, whether it's up to DC, or I've also driven my car down to Cocoa Beach a couple of times, and it is just a really good planning tool. Next slide. Okay, you get there, now what? In the past, you had to search and say, well, I'm at the destination, but I need to find a charger that's at a hotel. And you'd search some of the charger sites, you'd search some of the hotel sites, trying to figure out who had chargers. An app that's now available is something called EV Hotel. They take a look at the location where you're going and show you not only does your hotel have chargers, but is there a charger that you can access that's within walking distance of where you're going to stay? A very good planning tool if you get to the location and make a decision about where you're going to stay. Now that you've decided where you're going to stay, where am I going to be able to charge my car so I can continue on with my trip or whatever I'm going to do while in that city. But this is another example of an app that has come to marry the charging databases with the travel databases with hotels and give you a display of where you want to be and who's got chargers. Next slide. The one that most users use most drivers, owners use to find chargers is something called PlugShare. It's probably the one I use the most, and it is maintained by the drivers. So as we use these stations, we post up comments in the application about what's around it. Are there restaurants around there? Is there restrooms around there? Is there things to do? Is there a park nearby? And also things like, how do you find it? You would be surprised if you're going to a mall, how difficult it may be to find the charger on that piece of property. But the PlugShare application has very detailed directions on how to find it that are posted up by the users. The users also post up daily comments about which stations are working, not working, any problems at any location, as well as the pricing for using the charging station. So it's probably the primary application, smartphone app, to find a charger, not only while traveling, but just in your vicinity. What I have displayed here is all of the DC fast chargers located in North Georgia. If I would have put up the level 2 stuff, you wouldn't be able to see the map because it just would cover the entire map with pinpoints. You can also see, you'll see little applications with wrenches. That means the charger is either not working, got a problem, or is under construction. It may be a new site and it's just not up and running yet. Slide. So here's just an example, and all of these apps I carry on my cell phone today. And again, I collect these things because I've been doing charging for more than 25 years with my utility, and then as the Clean Cities coordinator here in Georgia, and now with Flipper Creek. These are apps that will show you where chargers are. ChargePoint has an app, PlugShare has an app, Greenlots has an app, ChargePoint or ChargeHub has an app. There's NextCharge, Blink, Easy Charge, SEMA Connect, EVgo, and as been mentioned, the US DOE AFDC station locator. There's another one called My EV Route. The EV Connect Electrify America is deploying chargers all over the country. It's places and places to go to find information about charging. There's not one single perfect app. Again, I like PlugShare the most. But each of these have a need and a piece of information that you may want, depending upon what kind of EV you're driving. I have more data on Leafs and Teslas, but there are apps for the other vehicles as well. And some of these you can set up so that it just works with your vehicle. For example, a better route planner. You tell it what kind of vehicle you're driving, and it adjusts charging times and rates and locations based upon the vehicle you're driving. Sarah, I'll turn it back over to you now.
Thank you so much for all of that great information about EV data and charging. I'm sure it will be very helpful for all of our EV users. Up next, we will hear a little bit about the EVWATTS program from Victoria McGarrell. She is a consultant at Energetics, and Energetics and Virginia Clean Cities are two of a number of partners on this EVWATTS project. So Victoria, I will hand it over to you.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Yes, so hi everybody, and thank you to Sarah and Mark and Virginia Clean Cities for inviting us to talk about this. So I'll be speaking on the EVWATTS program that we touched on a little bit, but essentially it's a data collection program that will provide information for the future of electrification. So Mike mentioned acronyms. Here's an acronym for you: Electric Vehicle Wide-Scale Analysis for Tomorrow's Transportation Solutions. And we never refer to EVWATTS as the full name because it takes too long to say. So for the rest, you'll hear me call it EVWATTS. You can skip to the next slide. So I'm with Energetics. We're an engineering and energy consulting firm. We're made up of lots of different folks with a lot of different technical backgrounds, as you can see here. And we offer many services, but I work under the transportation team. So we do lots of projects around electrification, at local, state, and federal levels, and EVWATTS is one of them. You can skip to the next. The EVWATTS project team is made up of a few partners, as Sarah mentioned. So Energetics is leading this with the Clean Cities, or excuse me, the Clean Fuels Ohio Clean Cities Coalition, helping to lead our Clean Cities partners, which are part of our implementation side of this. So Virginia Clean Cities is one of our partners, and we're also partnered with several other coalitions across the states to help us conduct outreach to bring on more data partners for this program. We're also partnered with Swatch Labs, who are the Geotab Go9 telematics device provider, and I'll get into what that really means in a few slides. And we're also partnered with ChargePoint, who's helping with some of the data side of this project. You can skip to the next. So a summary of what EVWATTS really is. It is a program that is funded through a Department of Energy VTO award. So the office that Mike was explaining a bit has helped make this program possible. So what we're doing is collecting real-world use data from both plug-in electric vehicles and charging stations. And I'll get into kind of the details of what vehicles and what stations we are interested in, but we're trying to get as much data from as many places as possible. And we are collecting that data, cleaning it, anonymizing it, and using it to create a public dashboard that will eventually be shared to help, hopefully inform future research, policy, and action around electrification. Next slide. Right, so we're collecting both vehicle and station data. On the vehicle side, we're looking at plug-in vehicles. So for anyone not super familiar, that means not just the typical hybrid that doesn't plug in, it needs to plug in to be valuable to this data set. We're looking at light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles. And we are looking for trip level data from those vehicles. So some vehicles are already equipped with telematics devices and some are not. This program would offer free telematics devices to any vehicle data partner. So we'll get into a little bit more, but it does add some extra value to fleet owners that might have some electric vehicles in their fleet. On the charging station side, we are collecting level 2 and fast charging data from all types of locations. We've listed a few here, but it's almost endless. I think one of the only, we won't be collecting stations from people's homes unless it's a multi-unit dwelling, so an apartment building would be eligible. But almost anywhere, the only thing is they need to be collecting data, so those stations need to be networked to some sort of data cloud. So your charge points stations that you see very often would be a good example of what that means. Next slide. Great. So sort of the overall goals of this project are to provide data to the DOE and the national lab. So as Mike was kind of going over, this data is really important to sort of move electrification forward and transportation in general forward. So any data partner contributing to this project is really contributing to the future of what comes next. And as we've seen in the last few months, it's an exciting time for electric vehicles. So I'm excited to kind of help contribute to that, and any data partner brought on is helping to contribute to that. We'll also be developing those high-level data summaries. So again, I mentioned this before, but any data partners would be able to kind of see how their data stacks up with the national data set, and then the public would also see this anonymous data set and reports that we produce. And we're also looking at, using this data to answer those key research questions. So we've got lots of folks that are really experts on the subject, helping to advise our project and sort of guiding the development of that eventual public dashboard that we're very close to being able to publish. So stay tuned for that. Next slide. Right, so the next couple of slides will go over sort of what that data might look like. These are just samples. They're not really what's being produced with the data set that we have so far. But so what we'll do is we're sharing these high-level data summaries at a quarterly level with stakeholders and project partners that kind of give a snapshot of the vehicle and charging station operations and trends. These will apply data analytics to analytics to answer the project's key research questions, and you know, this will kind of give a good snapshot. And the dashboard is nearly complete. It looks similar to this, but it looks better, I think. Next slide. And some example charging station analysis that you might expect to see with this program. So if you're to participate, your data could show up like this. So we are looking at how ports are utilized, how much charging events are happening at different types of locations and venue types, the grid impacts of charging stations, and sort of all of it. But these are some quick examples of the kind of data that we're looking at. Next slide. And this is, Mike mentioned this before, the EV project. These are kind of sample analysis that we're also kind of looking at for EVWATTS with vehicle data. So, and this is where, you know, the kind of the added benefit for fleet owners to see how their vehicles are performing. And for those who don't yet have electric vehicles, this is the kind of information that a fleet owner, you know, considering purchasing EVs might look at. So, you know, how are these vehicles performing in real life situations? Next slide. So if you were to own or operate an electric vehicle or electric vehicle charging station, you could be an eligible data sharing partner for this program. So to be a data partner, you would have to have rights to your EV or EV charging data. And so if your station is collecting data, or if you already have telematics installed in your electric vehicles, you can share that data with us as long as you have rights to it. If you do not have a vehicle that is already collecting data, we can provide you devices for that. We are partnering with all different types of organizations, so it can be public or private. And we are also working with individual drivers, so that is one piece that we can also explore if you were interested in participating as just a personal driver. Once we have that data, we'll use a secure process to transfer and store the raw data. Any personal information is scrubbed and the data is anonymized so that the final public report doesn't give away any personal information. For example, a vehicle from New York might show up as a municipal vehicle in the Mid-Atlantic region, you know, and would give some stats on how the vehicle performs, but it wouldn't go any further than that. Same goes with charging stations. So it'll still give valuable information at a regional level, but you know, it won't reveal any other information. You know, no one will be able to tell who's participating in the program. And then again, this vehicle and charging station data will be used to develop those summary reports to really show the trends and findings through this research. The information will be shared with the DOE for further analysis, and some of it will be shared publicly, as I've said. Next slide. So the benefits of sharing this data, the first would be to get those individualized reports that I've mentioned a few times now. So for fleet owners, it's really valuable to kind of see how their vehicles are performing and you know, what are the benefits? Where could you improve? With your fleet, is there opportunity to expand your fleet to include more electric vehicles, things like that. For charging station owners, you can also kind of get see how your stations are being used versus the larger data set, which can help kind of inform decisions like maybe how you set your pricing or if you have parking rules associated with that station. Again, you'll be contributing to this larger data set and this larger initiative to really move electrification forward, and you know, the benefit of the all type of benefit. What's not listed here though are the benefits specific to fleets, so I do want to highlight that if anyone on the call already owns or operates electric vehicles in their fleet, or an individual driver that's interested, you will receive, if you don't already have telematics, a Go9 device from Geotab. It's a great telematics device that collects lots of information specific to electric vehicles. We cover the cost of the hardware, and we'll cover the software costs because those are networked, and collecting data, there is a software cost associated. So we'll cover that cost for the project duration. I believe our last date official of collection would be September 2022, I believe. So at that point, you would have the option to continue paying that software cost and keeping the Geotab device or not. So that's another added benefit. You can sort of test out this technology. And with that Geotab device, you'll have very detailed information on your vehicle performance, vehicle tracking. They give vehicle health reports like the engine and the battery, state of charge, and lots of trip level data for day-to-day operations. Next slide. And finally, so to become an official data partner, you would have to enter a data sharing agreement. I've just shown here that it's just 4 pages, so nobody gets too scared of that agreement. And our contracts department works really hard to make sure that, you know, any potential partners' concerns are addressed in this agreement. And once that's signed, we will get you guys set up to start sharing data or get a telematics device installed and start participating in the program. And I think the next slide is my last. Yep. So thank you all for listening in. I think we're switching to Q&A now, but feel free to reach out to me. I've listed my email there, as well as the EVWATTS email. And we welcome any sort of interest in the program, and I'm happy to take questions here or offline about it.
Thank you so much, Victoria. That was a lot of really great information. And you're correct, we will be moving into the Q&A phase at this time. Let me just make sure I have all of my Q&A questions pulled up. That PowerPoint is misbehaving for me today. You can just see a very fast view of all of our slides. All right. Or we can leave it like that. Okay. So the first question that we have was actually about if we would be willing to share any of the information that we talked about today, specifically in regards to those EVWATTS for charging. Yes, we can share that information if you reach out to us. And we will also be sharing a copy of this recording. It will be up on Virginia Clean Cities YouTube channel, and we'll be posting information about that on our website as well. The next question that we got is someone looking for guidance on the best EVs to buy. They noted that there are so many options, and now they're finding themselves sort of overwhelmed trying to sort through the options. They already have a Simmons VersaCharge unit at their house, and they're looking to buy an EV for sort of more standard casual use, and looking for one that has at least 250 miles of range on a charge. Can any of you speak to any good resources? I know, Michael, you might have mentioned a few already.
Yeah, so I'll start off. I think the Alternative Fuel Data Center has an EV buyer's guide, that EV vehicle locator that can help you identify vehicles that have the right range, that have some of the other characteristics. It's a good place to start. And then also the fuel economy guide, the fueleconomy.gov, has a list of EVs, and it talks about their EV range and amount of money it would cost every year to recharge and things like that. So those two websites, which are pretty easy to find, would be good places to start. And then from there, you can branch out to the individual manufacturers once you've narrowed it down.
And we also have a link to a resource from energy.gov that I will share in the chat shortly for anyone who is interested.
Excellent.
Our next question has to do with the life of an EV. Can anyone speak to if an EV owner wants to extend the life or maximize the efficiency of their EV? Can they do that by looking at their data management and looking for their charging and usage patterns?
Yeah, most of the EVs out there have some kind of a recommendation on charging patterns. I know it's a very common topic among the Tesla owners as to how much to charge, when to charge. There's a lot of data out there, and there's no specific recommendation for all vehicles. I think it's more predicated to the type of vehicles you have. It's generally a good idea to not let them be fully discharged or to let them be fully charged without using it immediately. Those are kind of the two areas that most of the recommendations cover. The data I've heard over the years is stay somewhere between 80% state of charge and 40% state of charge, and your battery will be very, very happy for a very long period of time.
Excellent. And also related to your part of the presentation, Don, you outlined that great resource, the TesLab platform. And we have someone wondering if the data on the TesLab platform would be appropriate or sufficient for participation in the EVWATTS project. Victoria, you may be able to speak to that.
It's collecting the data and it's giving it to me, but it doesn't give it to anybody else. And I don't know. I know some of the people involved with the TesLab project, but I don't know if they would be able to access the data, because obviously they're probably concerned a little bit about proprietary information, because there's a lot of data there about everywhere I go. It tracks every trip I make, and some people may not want that information to be out there. As an aside, I'm also participating in the EVWATTS program through Clean Cities, Georgia. So although I'm not in the program yet, I am signed up to be in the program.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with that app, but I would say it would come down to most likely data sharing rights, if you had the right as a driver to share that or an app user to share the data. And yeah, we'd have to look into that a bit more. But
And Don, do you have the capability for yourself of downloading that data somewhere in some form, or is it just resident up in the cloud somewhere?
No, there are spreadsheets that you can download on specific pieces if you're trying to track something.
Gotcha.
Particularly those that have to do with battery health are generally the ones you can get data. I mean, I'm an engineer. I got spreadsheets on everything, and I've got data on all three leases I've owned for the last 11 years. I don't know what I'll ever do with the data, but I got a lot of data.
Excellent. That is very good to know. And then a question that we also have, and Victoria, this would be referencing your portion of the presentation. We have an individual asking to confirm that for those who want to be involved in the EVWATTS project and are sending telematics without a device, would they have to pay for September if their car already had the capacity to do telematics?
if they already have telematics installed, there's no cost to participate in EVWATTS, I should start. So if that's the confusion, there's no cost to participate. But if you're already paying for your telematics device, you would continue to pay for it. If we provided telematics devices, we pay for the cost up until September.
Well, let me see, double check if we have any more questions at this time. It doesn't look as if we do, but John, if you can let me know if I missed anything. So like we said, if anyone has any questions, any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Here at Virginia Clean Cities, we have Mark Lamont as our main EVWATTS contact. Victoria also knows a lot about the project. And then both Michael and Don can provide additional resources if you're interested.
Mhm.
I would also like to direct anyone who is interested in the EVWATTS project to check out Virginia Clean Cities resource page on the EVWATTS project. I'll be posting that link in the chat now. But if you want to find it later, you can navigate to our website at vacleancities.org, and you can find it under our projects and reports. Again, thank you so much for everyone for attending today, and thank you so much to our great speakers. I think this has been a really informative event. And thank you so much. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. But it looks like we'll be able to end about 10 minutes early today, so you can enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, guys.